with care and intention. Wheat represents abundance, collective effort, and the harvest of change, the fruits of labor sown through shared struggle and hope. The pink globe, amaranth, symbolizes enduring impact, resilience, and a legacy that lasts beyond a single moment in time. The natural bunny tails embody courage, passion, and the spark that ignites action and transformation. And the twine that binds it all together represents connection, unity, and strength we find in one another. So thank you, Heather and Cultivated Resistance, for all that you do. Each candle, by the way, carries the scent of Harvest Rise, a warm blend of orange spice, autumn leaves, and soft wood notes, evoking both the spark of change and the steady glow of sustained legacy. So please check out Cultivated Resistance in Hanover, Pennsylvania. One other note before Mike Barber gets us kick-started here, Jam Session 6. Indivisible York, where are you? Oh, there's so many of you. Please come up. All of you, come up. I want to celebrate you. I love you. And would you like to say a few words?
Sure.
I only have one candle, though. Can you guys share one candle? Okay.
We work well together, so we can share. Good afternoon. My name's Christine. I'm with Indivisible York. So are these lovely ladies as well. We just wanted to come up and tell you who we are. Indivisible York actively works to realize shared vision of a real democracy of, by, and for the people. We model inclusion, respect, and fairness in all of our actions. We coordinate, collaborate, and advocate, and we are nonviolent and peaceful. And we are organizing the No Kings Rally on October 18th, and we invite you all to participate with us. Bring your signs, your noisemakers, and help us to make this voice known that we're not, and heard, that we're not okay with what's happening, and that we will stand up against any tyranny. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, stop.
Hey, yeah, I want to get in on this. And a plug for the Valley. Indivisible York is a member of the Valley. Pages can be members of social media groups. We also have a new website, thanks to Anonymous, very important person. It's called thevalleypeoplepower.com. If you have a page of an organization that's mission aligned with us, and basically any organization that works for beloved community and living wages and killing poverty is on our team. So I think we're ready to go. Is Kadita piped in? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, take one.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Can we just do a round of applause for the Valley? I'm Mike Barber. Today of introducing one of our new calendar we have today. And we'll talk about money and we'll talk about voters of credit.
Are you having fun?
to 2024, 28% of the voter rolls in the state of Pennsylvania have been removed. 28%. And of the last election, 11,000 mail-in ballots were removed for things like not being dated properly or not having a signature on it. So voter suppression and really dark money is shaping the way that we are fighting for a democracy. I'm really privileged today that we have the 4 panelists with us today to really talk about their frontline view and the work that they're doing to fight for our democracy and to fight for the democracy of PA. So with me today, I have Lauren Johnson from March on Harrisburg. I have Kadita Kenner from the Pennsylvania Project up on our screen. I have Andy Mendoza here from the League of Women's Voters of York County. And we have Andrea Pollock from the March on Harrisburg. What we're going to do is I'm going to have each person take 2 minutes or more and share about their program, share about the work that they're doing, and really kind of talk about the subject that we're talking on. So this is your opening statement. We're going to start with Annie today. Annie, please share with us.
Great, thank you. I'm honored to be here. So I'm Annie Mendoza. My pronouns are she, her. I am the president and one of the founding members of the League of Women Voters of York County. We are nonpartisan and we accept all genders into our membership. And we are supporting civic engagement in the county. So that looks like voter registration. That also looks like turning out at the polls to vote, and also as a poll worker. And not just turning out at the polls to vote, but making sure that every voter is an informed person and knows who they're voting for and what they're voting for and what that impact is going to be in the future. A little bit about me as well. I work in elections, so I'm a consultant for the elections group. We are all former election officials helping state and local governments across the country run elections. I'm the former Deputy Director of Elections and Voter Registration here with the county, and I got my start as an elected judge of elections here in York Township. So,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right, Lauren Johnson, if you would, can you share about your mission and what do you think about dark money?
Sure.
In the city of PA?
So thanks again for having me. My name is Lauren. I use she, her pronouns. I work at March on Harrisburg. I've been here since June of 2024. A lot of what I handle are our policy teams, working on the legislative team, and then also organizing new members. So I've gotten to work a lot on dark money issues and money in politics through our money out side of our reforms, as well as people inside of reforms. I also am a student at Haverford College, so this is like the first step in my career on this. And I think that what we've been working on with dark money is really, with March on Harrisburg, seeing corruption as a barrier to justice. So if you care about climate change, you can't get justice for climate change without removing the corruption that allows fossil fuel companies to flood our elections with dark money. If you care about getting justice for healthcare, you can't get that without removing the extreme monetary influence that insurance companies and hospitals have on our politics. And the same goes for education. If you have Jeff Yass, who can spend millions and millions of dollars in every election and essentially have his way on any committee on education, you can't get that justice without removing corruption as a barrier to it. And dark money is a huge part of corruption, in addition to side jobs, which is where legislators can have a job outside of the one that they're already paid to do as our legislators. And the same goes for banning gifts. Pennsylvania is one of only 3 states where you can legally gift anything to your legislators. So, trips to Europe or things like that, that's all completely allowed. And dark money is one of the ways in which we see money in our politics and money prohibiting justice for other causes.
All right, thank you. We're going to go ahead and go to Kavita. She's up on the screen. Hi, Kavita.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Can someone tell me if you can hear me okay?
All hear me now? Is it working? Yay, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody here that is running tech. I'm Andrea, she, her pronouns. I am the lead organizer within March on Harrisburg. I live in Lancaster. I've lived all across Pennsylvania. I love Pennsylvania, originally from Jersey, but I now consider myself a lifelong Pennsylvanian, which is why I'm very passionate about getting corruption out of our political system here in our state. But yeah, my main role at March on Harrisburg is I am responsible for sort of bringing people into our organization and really orienting them, giving them the education and the tools they need to know what it takes to fight back against money in politics in our state. And so yeah, Lauren covered really kind of what we're about, but I'll just give a little recap because it never hurts to do so. We are a statewide anti-corruption, pro-democracy movement that is fighting to get money out of politics, bring people back into the civic process at the state level here in Pennsylvania. We've been doing this for 9 years now, and we are very, very much volunteer-driven. I see a few of our volunteers in the crowd here today, and I appreciate y'all and everybody that volunteers within March on Harrisburg so much. But like Lauren said, Pennsylvania is pretty bottom of the barrel when it comes to money and politics issues, right? One of 3 states that has no ban on the sort of gifts that our legislators can accept from lobbyists. We see really outlandish things that are given to our legislators, trips to Europe, wining and dining, tickets to the Super Bowl, to the Penn State games, right? These are big, sizable gifts that certainly have an influence on the policy decisions that our legislators make. And it's also just really indicative of kind of a deeper culture of corruption that exists within our Capitol. You know, we have a revolving door that spins constantly. Just a few weeks ago, the chief of staff of the Senate president resigned and is now a lobbyist for UPMC. I mean, very regularly, public officials resign and then they go and work in the private sector for an industry that they were previously regulating. Side jobs, like Lauren said, are legal in Pennsylvania. A legislator can hold a side job that is a clear conflict of interest. A great example that I love to give for this is Senator Gene Yaw. Does anybody here know Gene Yaw? Yep. He is the chair of the Senate Energy and Environmental Committee, top guy in the Senate when it comes to environmental policy. And he, at the same time, is a practicing attorney for a firm that represents gas companies. At the same time, while he has a full-time job as a state legislator, his side gig is working as a lawyer for a firm that represents gas companies. Pretty clear conflict of interest, right? So we have a lot of reforms that need to happen here at the state level to also just tackle kind of the corruption that's happening at the federal level. We're gonna really emphasize that today, that like statewide politics are very, very important, despite I think sometimes we're not told so. So that's the kind of money outside of what we do. And then we also focus on different policies that bring people back into the civic process. We're part of Pennsylvania Voice. We will be helping with the Voting Rights Act. I think we're planning on 2026. We also primarily focus on ranked choice voting as well. So we also focus on people and policies too. We have a 23-point policy platform, but there's only so much that we can focus in on at once. So yeah.
All right, thank you. And Khadija, can
Hear me? I can't see now anymore. I don't see you all. Can anybody hear me? I used to see you. If you can hear me, it was good until we changed the way it looks here on the screen. I can't see the panelists anymore.
Khadija, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Hi, Khadija. Will you please go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about the about your nonprofit, please?
Great. Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry I can't see you or be with you all today. I'm actually on Penn State's campus here in Center County with my team, and we're doing voter registration. We're trying to get all these college students registered to vote, and that's a big part of the two organizations that I lead, the New Pennsylvania Project, an IRS out of C4 organization, and the New PA Project Education Fund, a C3 IRS status organization. Both organizations are voting rights organizations, both doing lots of civic education and engagement. We center communities of color, Black, Indigenous, and other folks of color in our work. We center immigrant communities in our work, and we also center the youth, which we consider under the age of 35. We're a staff-led organization, so I believe in hiring people for their work. And so we have a staff across the entire Commonwealth doing voter registration, civic education, and engagement. And we are all about these judicial elections this year, as courts matter. And unfortunately, not too many people actually cast a ballot or even vote all the way down the ballot in judicial election years. So we're doing lots of civic education around this year's judicial election. As an organization that's a voting rights organization, we care very much about dark money in our politics and in our elections. And it is an issue for all people here in Pennsylvania. When you can have a single billionaire or two, if you include Elon Musk in this as well, who's put up a lot of money, in addition to Jeffrey Yaz, to disrupt democracy here in the Commonwealth and to try to buy our Pennsylvania state courts. That should be a problem for everybody that's watching this today or hearing this today. And so we have a lot of work to do to make sure that people feel compelled to actually come out and cast a ballot. There's a reason why turnout in odd years is under 30% in most places. So we have to give folks a reason to feel compelled to come out and vote. A lot of that is involved around the civic education, because if you don't know who the judges are, what they do, what their role is, likelihood of you coming out to vote for them is very slim. So that's what we're doing as an organization. And unfortunately, I can't be with you today, but there is Mayrini Perez from our team, from the NPPEF team, is there with you today. And hopefully she's helping folks check their voter registration status and get you registered to vote if you need that to happen for yourself today. October 20th is the deadline. It's the last day to get registered to vote before the November 4th election.
Than it did in decades before. So can somebody share with me what's changed in voting rights that has made it feel less welcoming to the average citizen to be a part of that? Who would like to start?
I can start on that. Yeah. So what has changed about voting rights in the past number of years? I definitely feel that it is the access to information, which can absolutely be a good thing in some cases, but there has been so much dis and malinformation going around and increasing in the past 5 to 10 years, and that has created a lot of confusion amongst voters. And election administrators are working tirelessly to combat all of this information. They've become public speakers, they've become communications specialists, in addition to security specialists and specialists in their own jobs. So they're just constantly fighting this barrage of information that is just completely not true or taken completely out of context. And so that's where we see voters either not voting, or we see laws putting in place restricting funding for election offices, which has been done here in Pennsylvania. We see laws being changed about the signatures on mail ballot envelopes or the dates. So seeing all that information and then laws being changed because of that, that's where I really feel that voter suppression is happening in this modern time.
Would anybody else like to add to that or share another perspective on that? Is this working now?
I think Adito wants to.
Yeah. One second, Canito, we're getting there. Okay. We're going to go ahead and move on. From my team for the Occupy Harrisburg group, I'm not Occupy Harrisburg, I apologize. March on Harrisburg, I apologize. What is the most visible sign of dark money in our current system? Now, you talked a little bit about gifts, about the trips to Europe, but for an everyday person, where can they say, wait a minute, that feels like someone from the outside is influencing the conversation?
Sure. I mean, like, raise your hand if you've seen on TV one of those terrible negative ads, or YouTube, or any sort of social media. Like, that's where you can see it the most in your day-to-day life. Dark money ads are disproportionately negative. It's because they're faceless. A candidate couldn't say plenty of these things because they would look terrible. It would reflect poorly on their reputation. But because these folks are behind an anonymous, sealed off, bland name of a dark money group, we don't know. So the things that you see daily, I think the most are in the negative ads that just flood our state every single election year. And Andrea can speak more as well.
I was gonna say, it's usually an ad that's like, this legislator kills puppies, or something obscene and awful. We've all seen that. They're incredibly negative. Yeah.
Yeah, or like there was in Bucks County recently, there was an ad against Senator Frank Ferry. He's a Republican, and it was from the Defeat Communism PAC, which was really aligned with a very different organization that was just trying to go after him for his stance on the budget on a small issue that it's universal and it's bipartisan. It's from Republicans on Republicans, Democrats on Democrats, and interparty ads as well. It's really just across the board that we see it.
So let me just kind of follow up on that. With the lack of accountability that a lot of those ads have, and it's also an amazing industry for the local news and radio industry, right? It's an economic driver for them. How do we push back for that? How do we push back on the use of these type of ads, looking for and or pointing out when ads are clearly wrong? I mean, for instance, the League of Anti-Communist Voters.
Yeah, Defeat Communism
Defeat
PAC.
Communism,
Yeah.
Which they could have made a PAC just for that, just to put that ad up to try to tie that communism to his profile, right? In some way, if they don't like him, then clearly he is a communist in some way. So what can we do to push back on that? I mean, obviously, voter reform is something that we need to talk about, changing those things, but how about today? What can we do?
Do you want to take it, or do you want me to go?
You can go for it, I can
Yeah, so should I talk about the foreign influence bill? Yeah, so we have a...
Am I able to be heard now?
Yes. Go ahead.
Great. I would love to be able to speak on this a little bit. The last question that was asked is about our voting rights, and to the point that was made by the previous panelists, is that yes, there's lots of misinformation and disinformation that's out there in this moment that has to be overcome. A lot of that is being financed by this dark money. I think about mailers that people in the audience today may have received that gives you misinformation, or I'll just call them lies. When you have a PAC led by Jeffrey Yaz, who is putting out misinformation, such as the example that our most gerrymandered congressional map that Pennsylvanians had to vote off of in 2016, ranked one of the most gerrymandered congressional maps in the country. There is an ad in paper in your mail today for some of you who will say that the actual Pennsylvania Supreme Court is the one that created that gerrymandered map, when in actuality it was actually legislators in Harrisburg who created that gerrymandered map that our Pennsylvania state Supreme justices ruled as unconstitutional and threw out. And so I think that you have folks with lots of money who are hoping to capitalize on low information voters and being able to trick them based upon that. Other mailers that this dark money is putting out in this current moment is saying, let's defend democracy, or let's have term limits, when all of this is inaccurate information, as we have term limits on our justices and other appellate courts, as we are very powerful voters in the Commonwealth. We're one of only 7 states in the entire country which we get to elect all of our judges and justices initially in partisan elections. And so if you have lots of money, like Jeffrey Yaz or Elon Musk, who pumped in early money into Lancaster County in December of last year to encourage people to launch an anti-retention campaign. This is historical in Pennsylvania. You never have this in which you have Supreme Court justices who have hit the road to campaign to be retained to the bench. Since 1968, Pennsylvanians have been voting in retention elections. And only one Supreme Court justice in the history of Pennsylvania voting this way was actually denied retention. And so having this anti-retention campaign provided by billionaires from in-state and out-of-state to disrupt democracy and attack our Pennsylvania state judiciary is absolutely problematic, and it needs to be pushed back on. And there needs to be some accountability for lying to Pennsylvanians.
For the lying. And so I want to circle back if we can to Andrea. Would you like to go ahead and share what you were going to share?
It is? Okay, cool, awesome. Yeah, so in terms of March in Harrisburg, so I think my answer is like yes and. So we last session introduced a bill and passed it through the full House that would stop 98% of Fortune 500s from political spending. It was any kind of multinational corporation. So a lot of kind of these big corporations you could think of, right, are multinational corporations. Just to kind of rattle off a few examples: Amazon, Aqua, Exxon, right? All of these corporations, that would have cut out kind of a big portion of that spending. But beyond that too, it's not just tackling that, right? We need to limit campaign contributions in general in Pennsylvania. We also need to ban gifts to lawmakers, right? Because right now, again, like a lobbyist can give our lawmakers gifts of any kind. We need to close the revolving door. We also need to make it illegal for legislators to hold side jobs that are conflict of interest. So I think in order to also tackle dark money, we have to also tackle these other systemic ways that money flows into our political system. Yeah, I don't know, Lauren, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, it's almost like a bit of a bucket with just a ton of holes in it. Like, you plug the dark money hole, it flows through side jobs and gifts and things like that. And that we really need to make sure that we are tackling all of these things together. And like Andrea said, this bill which bans corporations with substantial foreign ownership. So with high enough levels of ownership from a foreign country, the Supreme Court has said that there's no role for foreign influence in our elections. And so that's how that bill can pass through, and that's really important. And like Andrea said, like, there's a whole suite of reforms that dark money is so important, and it does cause so many issues for us, and we need to plug that hole as well as just a variety of others at the same time to really have the full effect.
So I want to ask this entire group, can grassroots efforts really compete with the power of dark money as it's flowing in? And can we talk about practical tools to fight misinformation? For instance, I love TikTok. I'm on TikTok all the time, and I'm at the point now with TikTok where it won't let me like any more people until I get rid of people, which is a real thing. So it's 10,000, by the way. I apparently have like 10,000 of Facebook. But the point in that is this: there are things on there that I can tell are clearly misinformation. And there are things on there that are people that maybe I like and I appreciate. And I'm going, wait a minute, I don't know if I truly believe that. What is the tool? What can we do to push back from a grassroots effort to maybe call out those things that are clearly being used to manipulate us? Somebody want to jump in on that?
My first question. We'd recommend Spotlight PA. I think that's one of the greatest accountability sources in Pennsylvania. They're a wonderful newspaper. I think that's one of the ways to kind of fight misinformation, is just like, where are you getting your news? Are you getting it in multiple places? I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Lauren, but I mean, that would be the main thing I would say is really check where you're getting your news from.
Yeah, I would add to that as well. Your local elections websites,
Go to York County's elections page. If you have questions about elections, they have a ton of information on there. Same thing with Dauphin County's and Lancaster County's election administrator pages. So make sure you're fact checking before you're sharing information. I've seen plenty of things I don't have TikTok, but on Facebook and Instagram where I'm like, wait a second, like, let me double check that. And, you can fact check your friends and your family. I know that can be some tough conversations sometimes, but just say, sometimes they might say something a little far-fetched, and even if you just question and say, like, tell me more about that, or where did you get your source, like, that can even help manage some of that misinformation.
Okay. Khadija, would you like to add to that?
Sure. I'd say, I believe the question was, how can grassroots organizations help with this misinformation and disinformation overcoming? And so as a grassroots organization we have to meet people where they are. We can't just assume that someone's going to go visit a website We can't just assume that they're absolutely going to visit a governmental website. Even greater odds of that happening are very slim. So we have to be in community. So I appreciate what you all are doing here today and gathering the beloved community so that these conversations can be had. This is the way you bring about change. We have to get back to the old school ways of organizing, which is be in the community in which you're servicing. And so if we're trying to overcome the misinformation that's happening, particularly like in the city of Reading, you need to go into the city of Reading and have conversations. And if you're holding an event, to have something like a jam, the Justice Jam that you all are having, you've got to knock on the doors in the local community and say, we're having a Justice Jam today. And could you come? There's free lasagna, and we want you to learn some things, right? This is have to get back to the old school. And this is why those with dark money are very successful. When you have someone like Elon Musk who says, I will give you $54 to attend this or to sign this petition, people need $54. And so they will attend. So we have to get back to the old school ways of organizing. Grassroots organizing is in community. And yes, that community is also TikTok in this moment. So if you don't have someone who's matching the demographic in which you're trying to serve, you're not going to be able to reach these communities and service them in a way. So we absolutely, if we're going to organize on TikTok or Facebook or actually on the ground, it's very important to have someone who's from that community engaging that community in a discussion and meeting people where they are, not only physically, but the way in which they receive information. A lot of times I feel like we do a lot of talking at people or we speak above a level. And as someone who's doing lots of voter registration, we have an absolute literacy issue in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And people need to hear this information on a 4th grade level to a 6th grade level in order to truly understand it. And I think we have to get back to that. That's how you overcome misinformation and disinformation. You meet people where they are and you speak to them on a level in which they understand and bring it back to the issues that they care about. A lot more listening than a lot more talking at people.
Specifically. Kadita, can you hear me? Okay. Kadita, I know you have to leave in just a minute, so I'm going to throw one last question at you. Can you please share with us the communities that are most affected by both voter suppression and that are most affected by dark money and really susceptible to that? Please.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And I'm sorry, I do have to depart. I'm gonna have to get back to that college campus because that's the community who's susceptible. Penn State University students are susceptible to this. I left the hub just a couple of, an hour or so ago so I could join this. And before I left and speaking to those students, I had one gentleman, young student, who said, I'm not sure if I want to get registered to vote. I'm not sure if I want to vote because I just don't have enough information. That is the number one thing they say. I just don't have enough information. And they are astute enough to know what is misinformation and disinformation. They want the truth. So when we talk about the communities most impacted by dark money, most impacted by historical disenfranchisement and suppression, it's the communities that we center. If I think about the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania right now, there are 1.5 million Pennsylvanians who are eligible to vote but not registered. And the majority, the largest gap exists in communities of color. 24% of Black folks eligible to vote and not registered. 34% of Latinos eligible to vote and not registered. 40% of the Asian American Pacific Islander community eligible to vote, not registered. 90% of Native Americans in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania eligible to vote and not registered. And then if we talk about the youth, only 1 in 4 high school students of voting age are actually registered to vote. And that number goes down when you talk about Philadelphia and Pittsburgh or the city of Chester. So we have lots of work to do to provide the civic education on the ground in communities and be with people. And so I appreciate you allowing me this time to be with you. And I'm sorry I can't continue, but I have to get back to Penn State because we've got to register these young people to vote and we've got to give them a reason to do so.
All right, let's give her a round of applause. Thank you, Kadita. Okay, so for the panel that's here, if everyone left here tonight to do one thing, what is the one thing they should do to make an impact in this?
Okay, sure. I would say, democracy is not self-sustaining. It takes all of us to do a little bit here and there. So find what you're good at and work towards that. For some people, it's going to be speaking at events like this or being in the audience at events like this. For some, it might be becoming a poll worker or becoming a poll watcher or maybe even working at an elections office. Getting your neighbor registered to vote. It takes everyone with a little bit of effort to keep our democracy running and keep it functional. So I would say that would be my one takeaway. Find what you're passionate about and work towards that.
How about down there, anybody? Thoughts?
I go first. Yeah, I would say that I think we've kind of hit this earlier, but just that in the midst of a lot of news coming from up top, remember that Pennsylvania politics are just as important, right? We have a lot of work to do right here in our own backyard. We need to build a very strong statewide democracy movement in order to really tackle what's happening at the national level, right? Change is something that happens from the ground up. At March in Harrisburg, we are entirely volunteer powered, right? If you join, there are 10 million plus one things that you can do, and we will help you learn how to do those things, and we will train you because political education is kind of a core component of what we do. We have regular classes that we do throughout the year. We just did a 4-part money in politics course back in the summer. We've done a 5-part kind of lobbying series, teaching people how to talk to their state legislator, identify who their state legislators are, and talk about these kind of reforms. And we're also going to be doing a 2-part course this upcoming winter that focuses on base building, right? Being on the ground and having conversations with people, knowing how to have that one-on-one conversation and talk about these issues. So really would just emphasize to people here, get involved with March in Harrisburg, get involved with other democracy organizations, and that the state level matters. It really, really does matter.
Just to reiterate what Andrea said, that's my point as well. Things are bleak a lot of times, but our political culture and our politics and our governance matter at every level. I'm guilty of this as well. You sit there, you watch the national news. It's hard to find ways that you can personally make a big difference in that, but it doesn't have to be either or. You can be concerned about the national level and also care about your state and local level. The change can start here in York today. These are events that we have events all the time where we're tabling at, a fair or a farmer's market or at a college campus. Those are the conversations that starting that really makes a change, that going in and lobbying your state legislators makes a big change. And, it matters. Education is regulated at the state level, healthcare, all of these issues, especially that are not getting fixed at the gridlock in Congress, we can fix them for ourselves here in Pennsylvania. And so I think that really matters, and reaching out to your legislators, to especially, in York, Representative Carol Hill Evans is the chairwoman of the State Government Committee and in the House. And, she is a believer in these sorts of things, and we need to encourage her to fight for this, to show her that, we're all behind these important things, to call her, to talk to your representatives wherever you live and whomever may represent you, that is so critically important, and to call out things that are wrong, but also to remind people who are doing the right thing to keep doing the right thing and to keep on pushing, because it's hard, because so many people don't want to do the right thing. We've talked about that so much so far. Dark money, gifts, all these things are really easy to get complacent with, and it's really so important to support the people who are trying that, and that person can be you too.
And just I want to say one more thing. Can people hear me? There are 2 gift ban bills that are in the House. They're in the state government committee, right, which is Rep. Carol Hill Evans. That's her committee. So I'm going to encourage people to call her and give that friendly encouragement. And I'm going to just say her number now. And I really would love if folks could call on Monday, because it's a great next step that people can take. But it's 717-848-9595. Please call Representative Carol Hill Evans this Monday. Give her that friendly encouragement and say, look, we're behind you. We're here to back you. I know you're kind of in the midst of this system, and there's a lot that we're up against, but we're here to support you. So please do. There are 2 gift ban bills that are there. There's also a gift ban bill that is in the Senate State Government Committee as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally can. I did say it very fast. 717-848-9595, and that is the number to her district office as well. And if you also go to giftban.org, giftban.org has a bunch of different next steps that you can take. We have samples on like letters to the editor that you can write for the gift ban. We have information on what legislators are signed on to the gift ban bills currently. We have flyers that you can print out and hand in your community. Like we really have next steps, tangible next steps that you can take. And I'm happy to talk with anybody about this afterwards as well. And if anybody who is watching, my email is Andrea, ANDREA, @mohpa.org. So, yeah.
Annie, you have a really interesting perspective as you were a poll watcher, is that correct? I was a poll worker. A poll worker, right.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen in actual voter suppression at the ground level? I know in my current voting area, I'm not allowed to bring any form of food and or water in order to wait in line, and sometimes that line is hours long. Sure. So can you talk a little bit more what you've seen, what you've witnessed as part of that role?
Yeah, so I do want to reiterate that there are 161 polling places in York County alone. We need about at minimum 5 poll workers at each polling place. 3 of those poll workers are elected, and those folks are going to be elected this November. So make sure you get to know your poll workers or become a poll worker yourself. They are your neighbors. But with that said, there are many ways that voter suppression can happen on like a micro level at polling places. So that could be long lines, like you mentioned. That could be poll workers asking for ID when ID is not required, or making a person vote provisionally when they can vote with just a regular paper ballot. So that's why we need good, competent people as poll workers. Your local election office trains poll workers. York County, I believe they still have their poll worker training online, but you get paid for the day. You don't get paid much, but it is something. So I highly recommend the best way to combat voter suppression at the polls is to become a poll worker yourself. And you work 2 days a year, so it's a great job.
And it's an important job.
Yeah, very important.
So we're going to open it up to the room for 2 more questions, and then I'm going to actually have our panelists give a closing statement each as we head out. So are there any questions in the room? Come on. I'll come to you.
One of the areas that I've come in my process of canvassing and campaigning is people who are re-entering life after being in prison. And so what work do you guys do, or do you know of organizations, I'm familiar with some, but just for everyone, that help with those that have been incarcerated, understand the rights that they have after leaving the prison system and when they can get their right back to vote. Because I know in Pennsylvania, felons can vote. Correct me if I'm wrong. My husband. So felons can vote after they've like cleared their debts, essentially. So that, I think, is also a form of voter suppression, in my opinion, not informing these people who have served their time that they have that right to vote again. So please.
It's a great organization that helps with that. I believe the Reentry Coalition in York County also can assist. And even just the elections office in York County, they have a lot of information on it.
My question is to Andrea, and that is, why do they call it March on Harrisburg, and what kind of direct action does March on Harrisburg do?
It's a great question, Steve. Yeah, so we are called March on Harrisburg because we do, in fact, actually march on Harrisburg. We have marched long distance, 5 times now. And we marched one time from York. Yeah, it was my first march from right here. I'll never forget, it was very fun. It was a great place to also sleep on the march too. That was back in 2022, it was my first march. We are gonna be marching again in the spring of 2026. I believe the march will start in last week of April, if I remember correctly.
May. It's after the election, right, in May?
It's either last week of April or in May. We're still locking down the date, but anyway, that general time frame. save the date. We're going to be marching. We're going to be marching, and it's going to be about getting money out of politics at the state level. It's a very, very fun time. You know, we're practicing democracy as we're going. It's really great. There's a lot of bonding that happens. There's a lot of different roles that people can take. So even if you're not, you don't want to be necessarily one of the marchers, you can help out with like food and housing, social media work. Like there's so many different ways to help out with our marches. And then March on Harrisburg, we also do engage in a nonviolent direct action, a civil disobedience. We have done, oh gosh, over 40 nonviolent direct actions in Harrisburg. And so, yeah, if anybody here is kind of interested in learning more about NVDA, we do have a NVDA class that is up on our website that just kind of goes into it. But I'm also happy to talk more about direct action with anybody after today. So, yeah.
All right, we have time for one more question from the group. Anybody here have another question? Anyone? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and turn it over to our panelists and have each of our panelists do a closing statement. You guys can talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. Obviously, about this would be great. And we'll go ahead and close out. So who would like to go first?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for being here today. This has really been an honor and a privilege to talk with all of you. I think to kind of sum it all up, we need to have radical transparency in the dark money and campaign finance world of elections. We need to know who is influencing our elections and why. Every voter deserves that, and I think that's one of the main factors that perhaps voters aren't feeling as encouraged to vote, and that is eventually one of the biggest forms of voter suppression, is getting people apathetic about voting, that their vote's not going to count, or that nothing is going to change. But I think we've seen throughout the country, especially this year with a lot of special elections that have happened, that the grassroots organizations or the underdogs can still win against this dark money. And I think we need to continue showing up. We need to continue asking questions and demanding that radical transparency.
Yeah. I just want to thank everybody so much for being here. Shout out to all of you who have been pulling off this event. It's really, really great. It's so wonderful that you're able to have like a day-long event like this and have all of these different organizations that are featured. So just thank you. And thank you to whoever is on tech there and handling all the mics. I know it's not easy to run tech, so I just want to give you a little bit of appreciation. But yeah, there's a great Howard Zinn quote where he says, like, it's not unfoolish to be an optimist, right? It's not foolish to be one, right? I mean, like, we have seen humanity capable of doing really, really good things, right? We've had wins as a democracy movement, right? When we get organized, when we build up people power, when we build it up from the ground up, like, we are able to accomplish really, really big things. And we are kind of in a moment right now in history where we need to act. I find myself feeling the most cynical, the most depressed if I'm not doing something. So if I want people, I guess, to take anything away today, it's get involved, do something. We have concrete things that you can work on. You can focus on change in your own backyard. And just, there's a community aspect to it too. A lot of, I guess, listening to a lot of the news that comes from up top, it can feel really isolating, right? You're like reading it on your phone or you're seeing it on your computer, and it can just feel really overwhelming and isolating. And there's just the community aspect to March on Harrisburg that, like, I really, really deeply appreciate. And that's what ultimately makes me really, really hopeful in the midst of a lot of negativity coming from up top. But we have a lot of work we need to do. We need to pass a gift ban in Pennsylvania. I mean, we are one of 3 states that does not have one, right? We need to do that as a state. That needs to happen. It's unacceptable. It's disrespectful to us as Pennsylvanians that we don't have this, right? We need to limit campaign contributions, right? One of 10 states, 0 limits on campaign contributions. Unacceptable. We need to do that, right? We need to ban dark money, right? That needs to happen. We need to close a revolving door. There are tangible reforms that we need to do in this state that other states have done. And so we need to really, really encourage our state legislature to do so. So yeah, that's, I guess, my final statement. Get involved with MOH.
Yeah, I fully concur with what both Annie and Andrea have said, so I'll be short. You know, Pennsylvania can go from a sort of a worst to first type strategy here. You know, Louisiana, Illinois, these other states have passed corruption laws in spite of their history of corruption. And, personally, even just a year and a half ago, when I started with March on Harrisburg, I had never talked to a legislator. This was completely foreign to me. This is not something that, was a part of my day-to-day life. And now I'm able to lead these meetings and everything like that. So you don't need experience. Like, as long as you show up at a group like League of Women Voters, like March on Harrisburg, just come and bring your enthusiasm, because that person who makes the change can be you. That can be you in that room that is demanding change, that is really fighting for that, that's working on policy. If you can convince your kid to put their shoes on in the morning, you can lobby. If you can sell a drink as a bartender, you can lobby. These are all things that sound kind of separate from our lives, but these are all skills that we have and are all very valuable to all of this. So yeah, thank you for everybody for being here and for putting this on.
Please give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Barba. This session will be recorded on YouTube, so look for that on the Valley, the Indivisible Love Movement Facebook group. We also have a website, thevalleypeoplepower.com. Also, please sign up on Substack for email updates and occasional essays, and if there's any way we can be of service to you, please reach out to us. We exist to serve. Thank you so much, our panelists. Does everybody have a decorative candle there? And we really appreciate all that you do. And I'd also now, before we honor a couple of businesses, we'd like to honor March on Harrisburg for its moral courage and persistence with our Champions of Democracy icon. So, Andrea, if you'd be so kind to to accept this award, we'd be honored. And I will, we have theme days on the Valley, so Thursdays, I think, I'm slightly, I'm on the spectrum, so sometimes I forget things. I think it's Thursday, March on Harrisburg Thursdays. So we have theme days. We like to continue the drumbeat on these issues because it's so important. I mean, Andrea, Rabbi Michael and company, that you guys are in the trenches all the time and you're on the front lines. But it's so easy to lose track of these issues. And I will say this, elected officials can be quite cagey and elusive. And we invited several to attend this session, even to participate in the session. And it wasn't lost on me that they basically avoided this like the plague. So we have to do a better job. We can talk later. But you all make their lives uncomfortable in a good way. So thanks for making political lives very uncomfortable. You're very good at it. And you don't give up. And please check out their website. It's excellent. And, it has a list of the folks that have supported eliminating legal bribery in Pennsylvania. And the list might surprise you because there are Republicans, I don't know the names off the top of my tongue like Andrea does. Do you want to say a few words about those who are champions of the bill? Yeah.
Thank you for always updating it. There's lists of the folks that have signed on, so if you don't see your legislator there, give them a call and say, why aren't you signed on to this? I'd really like to see you actually sign on to a bill and show me that you want to ban gifts to lawmakers from lobbyists. There are obviously good legislators that exist in that building, but it's obviously a very, very corrupt structure. So there are people that are in there that are trying to fight and do the right thing. I can say the champions of our bills that have introduced it. So on the House side, we have Representative Solomon, who's introduced one of the gift ban bills alongside Representative Webster as well. And Webster is also one of the legislators who introduced our bill that would stop corporations with significant foreign ownership from political spending as well.
And there is such a thing, let's be frank, where there are folks that may have co-sponsored the bill, but just really done it, kind of in name only and aren't really enthusiastic. So you have a lot of soft supporters, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that you see where legislators kind of sign on to a bill just as a way of sort of being like, all right, I want to get people off my back about this. So like I do encourage, even if you see your legislators signed on, friendly encouragement is always good. So kind of the next thing you can say to your legislator if they're signed on is like, okay, I'd like for you to make a public statement about this. I want you to say that we really need this to pass in Pennsylvania. Another thing you can ask them to do is go talk to what's called leadership. These are the most powerful people in the state. I can list off the positions. So on the House side, you have the House Majority Leader, Speaker of the House. Then on the Senate side, you have the Senate Majority Leader, Senate President. These are the most powerful people in the state. They really control what bills pass or don't pass. So encourage your legislator, if they're not a member of this leadership team, go talk to your leaders. Tell them that you want this bill to pass. Those are kind of the next asks that you can give a lawmaker that's already signed onto the bill.
And don't foreclose on that a lawmaker might support a piece of legislation because of their party. You know, if you're a Democrat and you're disappointed with your Republican representatives, this is something that is bipartisan. It's a bipartisan issue in that there are bipartisan groups who are for their corruption. They want that, and then there is a bipartisan coalition against it. And you know, this is an issue where in the House we have Democratic co-sponsors in the majority, and in the Senate. The prime sponsor is Senator Lisa Baker, who's a Republican. So, and the same thing, if you're a Republican and you have a Democrat in office, talk to them, because this is something that completely crosses party lines.
Thank you so much. Thank you.